Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I have Mbokodo, a very powerful and dynamic young woman growing up in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape. She has done so much for the community in the university, using also structures in the church and externally in order to impact the lives of the community from which she emerged. I want us to talk a little bit more with Sesethu Gqomo Seyibokwe, a goat.
The
Kunjani,
greatest of
Mbokodo?
all time, yes. I'm good, also. How are you?
I'm well, man. I'm happy. I'm happy to actually have this conversation.
Yes.
I guess we have been having this conversation for years, actually. It's just that now we're going to have to put it, just compact, compress it
Yeah.
to be compact and
Yeah.
actually be able just to deliver, just blow by blow, izinto that Sesethu has learned over time. Uzalwaphi ngubani?
So, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I am indeed honored to be here today. And, I've also seen the great work that you have done as Black Hat. I mean,
Thank
from
you.
our structures as youth leaders over 17 years ago,
Yes.
leadership has just, been something that you have been thriving in for a very long time.
Thank you so much.
Sesethu Gqomo is from Johnnic, Ekhayelitsha. Was born and raised in Khayelitsha, and then moved to the northern areas, which is a predominantly colored-based community, which I'll delve more into. I am a sister, I am a wife, and I'm a mother.
Kan je Afrikaans praat?
Swa.
Now, I'm happy that she came and she thought that she would actually, surprise us with a black hat. An
Yes.
actual black hat, which for us has been a figurative, black hat, but also my surname was, it means hat.
Yes.
Black is an ethos that we take pride in. It's an ethos of excellence. It's an ethos of Africanism. I don't talk much about that. I think I should actually delve into that next time. But today, I want Sesethu to just tell us a little bit more about the parenting that made you to be who you are. What are these, incidences that you can remember, that you can say, hey, I learned something from this part of, kind of an incident that had happened, but because of that parentage and that respect, and for an example given by the parents, I am this person. What are those things?
I think one of the most important things is A, intentionality, and B, standing up for yourself, and knowing who you are. I think those are the top three things that I've learned from my parents, and it's something that has been inculcated between my sister and I, that you need to stand firm in who you are at all times. So going back to what I was referring to, growing up in a predominantly colored community, I remember we would be on our way back from school. So imagine this setting, a black girl in a multiracial school who lives in a colored community. So there's just all these dynamics that you're
Yes.
constantly dealing with and delving with. And, as we got older, we then started using public transport on our way. We're like, no, we're a bit independent now. And so when you got onto a taxi on your way home, and the taxi driver like, no, this taxi is for, it's going to Cleary Park. Like, you're a black person. Why are you going to Cleary Park type of thing? And you had to stand firm and say, no, this is where I'm going. I know where I'm going. I'm not, this is
Yeah.
not a mistake. And I guess that translated a lot in a lot of the decisions that you have to make, and a lot of the decisions that you also make in business, that many people might come to you and say, no, you can't run a PR and events management agency in Gqeberha as a black woman. I mean, this is not your market. It's not for you. The economy is not in your favor, and all sorts of narratives. But if you know that, no, this is what I want to do, this is where I want to go, then this is the route that you're going to take. So standing in your truth has also been, very beneficial in the sense that, cultures influence us a lot. And when, you might also see with your daughter who is exposed to many different cultures that,
Yeah. Guys, I'm the dumbest person in my household. I must say, cut.
and then they want to experiment with certain things that, and you might just say no because you're saying no because you don't know any better, not because you feel that this is beneficial or not.
Yes.
So one of the things of standing in your truth is also to say that when at certain times or at certain periods of our schooling or our upbringing, racism was also very institutionalized and very manicured. So sometimes you would find that if you had a certain type of hairstyle at school, I remember we used to have an auntie who used to plait our hair, and it would be those knots where you weave the hair and then you connect it to the next one, weave it.
Yeah.
And our Afrikaans teacher was like, you know, hukom is a spinnekop. Spinnekop is in spider. So it might have been a joke, but it was a derogatory joke, And the rule was your hair had to be neat, no hair in your face, and it shouldn't touch your collar. So it met the criteria, but it just didn't adhere to the smooth, kind of laid back, hair tied back kind of way. And, those little nuances and those little jabs and those little jokes were those we had to attack or to mitigate very early on. And I mean, they still happen to this day, where you find yourself in an environment where if you have a mentor or someone who is kind of, guiding you along the way, saying, oh, Shane, this is our little, you know, BE project that we're kind of helping. And then you put out your hand and say, good day, I'm Sesethu Gqomo Seyibokwe, founder and director of SG Communications, just to always align and say, no,
This is how you introduce me.
yeah,
This is who
I'm
I
not
am.
the
Not,
skivvy that you're helping, or
yes,
your BE kind of,
scoring and
score,
all of
yeah,
that.
or whatever the case may be. So standing in your truth really helped us in terms of uh, being in business and in life in general, that people will definitely treat you the way that you put yourself out there, and sometimes they will take advantage and try to dim your light, but you just need to remind them to turn the light back on again.
And I find that to be so important as we also work with different races, but also the age gap. Sometimes there are people that want respect, command respect because of the age. And you're supposed to actually almost kneel, almost beg when you actually address them. And I hate that. I hate that. I hate feeling small for anything. I leave spaces where I feel small.
Absolutely.
If I'm not appreciated. And I'm seeing that also coming back again for some reason, maybe because of the space I'm in, having to almost judge about which space, a lot of
Absolutely.
respect that is counterproductive. I hate that. But maybe let's go back to you again. You've had a very, I see the issue of race. I see the issue of the different, I would say, probably you had to get different characters. You have to be different characters. As a black person who speaks English, who stays in the northern areas, or and then you go to a church that is this way. How do you relate with your cousins? How do you relate with people that look at you as if you have achieved or you are everything that they want to be? I'm raising this because I know that I have to almost think sometimes if I'm in groups with family, how do I show myself but still become part of the family? How do I say things and not be judged that I'm this? How do you deal with that dynamic? Because yours is different.
So the beauty of being exposed to a lot of cultures from a young age is learning to first understand than to be understood. Because you've always had to find yourself in a situation where you need to navigate the space first, understand the climate, and then kind of adapt to it. So when reaching out to your family members might see you in a particular way. They think that you are this established person who's making X amount of money, etc., 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 which is not always the case. And there you open yourself up and also be vulnerable to a certain extent to say, "Yo, Ndase, it
Yes,
gets
I didn't have.
rough. It gets rough on these streets." Yes, we have to put our businesses and our milestones on social media. However, there's a lot that happens in between that's not necessarily celebrated. And then learning to understand the situation before being understood has also helped in the business fraternity. What I've seen having been in business over 6 years is that a lot of entrepreneurs like to sell, the sad story or the story of the struggle. And some may look at Sesethu and say, but Sesethu didn't really have much of a struggle. She went to Ivy League schools. She, went to Ivy League University, and where is the struggle in her life,
Yes.
and so then comes the fact of being in the missing middle, that that wasn't poverty wasn't part of my struggle, but there were a lot of other struggles that you had to deal with. There were a lot of struggles of presenting yourself as a black female in certain spaces, presenting yourself as not being too black or too white or too colored or too anything, to present yourself as being a knowledgeable individual in that particular space. And struggles such as, when you go to university and you can't apply for a certain type of bursary because your parents are civil servants, yes, but it doesn't mean that you had it all in your lap. And when you apply and they see that your parents earn X amount of money, you don't apply. But the truth of the matter is they don't necessarily afford for you to be here. So there was always the struggle that you're not really rich enough, but you're not actually poor enough. So where do you stand? Where do you lie? And navigating yourself and positioning yourself has been very key in those struggles.
There's a German friend of mine who told me something that it never left my mind. He said that he grew up in a middle class household. They were not poor. They had so much just to. In fact, they had enough just to go by. But they were not as rich as the richest people that they always frown upon, even from that middle class
Yeah.
status. And then he said something that I never thought about it. He said, if you see poverty and you're not part of it, and you see richness and you don't desire it, you become suspended. And that's why he said, as German young people, we basically have to travel and look for things to do, and look for sometimes poverty to rescue someone and all of that, because they don't desire to be the billionaires, because they regard that as crass.
Yeah.
And they don't desire also to be poor. Of course, you're not saying that.
Yeah.
But I want you to tell me, how far do you want to go with everything that you know before we get to what you do? How far do you want to go?
So the narrative of my life was beautifully explained by a quote by Chinua Achebe, that until the lion learns how to write, the story will always glorify the hunter.
Yes.
So until I share my story in the way that I know best how, in the way I represent many people who are not represented, many young black females who find themselves trapped in a corporate space, in an academic space, many young black females who feel that they don't really want to venture into business because they are scared of the backlash, or that there's this narrative of businesses is hard, of which it is, and certain things are unattainable. So rather don't go into business because you will fail, and when you fail, you have to go back into the job market, and you might have to lose it all and to rebuild all over again. So mine is to say, just give it a try. Do it with as much excellence as you possibly can, and see where that takes you. So for me, having been a lecturer, I think I've shared this before, that when the third year students had to do their final year project, they had to do it from a zero-rand budget, taking into consideration all the theory that we have taught them in the past 3 semesters. And you would see the vast difference between a predominantly white group and a predominantly black group. Predominantly white group, you would get there is a market. It's a full-on market. There's an Algo FM outside broadcast van. This is a third-year project, non-profit. There are people who are literally selling, their products and services. They've paid money. It's excellent. You have no choice but to score them 95% because they've done above and beyond what you taught them in class. And then you go to a predominantly black presentation or oral day, and you can just see,
It's a orange.
like, you can see it on their faces that they are so frustrated. They tried to get a sound guy who's a friend of a cousin of a something something. He didn't pitch that day. The caterer said she was going to make them scones for free, and then she only gave them 10. The presentation, they didn't have enough printing quota money, to print the programs in full color. So mine, as the adjudicator, and someone else's was full color, and then everyone else's was black and white. And just the way everything, went about. And when you do the feedback, because we had to then do feedback sessions, what went wrong, what went right, and asking them, so guys, what happened? How did this happen, or why did it play out the way it did? You would find that it's not necessarily that they didn't go out and do the work, or they didn't go out and send out the proposals, or they didn't go out and,
And try their
and
best,
try,
yes.
but the access was not there. They did not have access to certain spaces. They didn't have access to these platforms. And for me, that is where I felt that SGComs needs to start because of that.
Again, the Mbokodo Sesethu Gqomo Seyibokwe. I've known and worked with her for a while, and I think there's something that I want to share that I appreciate about Sesethu is that once she puts her claws into something, it succeeds. She started a program in Mbokodo Rise, and she would tell the story, I think, with less than about 15,000 rand, and now they are giving away
Listen, 5.
5,000 rand.
Yeah.
Yeah, even worse. And now they are giving away about 50,000 rand, and we
With,
partnered with BMW and
yeah,
all of that.
and
Yeah,
corporates, absolutely.
tell us how is that? How is it going? What's happening? Tell us more about Mbokodo Rise.
So Mbokodo Rise is a Women's Day celebration that I founded 6 years ago. It was birthed once again from not an irritation, but a a wanting of a particular event that was not necessarily prescribed to a certain political group, that wasn't assigned to a church, that wasn't part of any type of construct. That this was just a celebration of women wanting to be inspired cross-culturally, multi-dimensionally, with all ages involved. So it started a Pagamisa building in New Brighton, with
Pagama,
sorry,
yes. I
Pagama
know the
building
building.
in New
Because
Brighton.
my school was architect.
Yes.
Yes.
So Pagama building, it was at Cafe Rizo, which was a beautiful restaurant by Vuyokazi, and the way the community came together in making that event happen made me feel like, what, there is definitely something here. There's a niche market that needs to be spoken to, and this can't just end here. So I remember the budget at the time. The meal, I think, was 65 rand. The guest speakers was my past lecturer Adelina, Unadia, and Utumi. There was a performer, Uspokazi Divinity.
Yes.
She did a beautiful poetry set there. We had sponsors for our gift bags. We went to this Misbah, the cloth store. They gave us dukes so that ladies upon arrival have dukes. We had calamine to Togoza, the ladies upon arrival. I mean, it was a literal case of working with what you have where you are, doing what you can with what you have where you are. And I believe that, if anything, that first Mbokodo taught me that we don't start in the BMW centers, we don't start in stadiums, we don't start at the boardwalk ICC. We start where we can with what we have where we are. And once you can present that as a proposal to potential sponsors in the coming years, they can see that you have had traction, you are able to put this together, and that gives them more confidence. So as the years went on, Mbokodo became bigger and bigger and bigger, and now we're sitting. It costs about 6 figures to put the production together, with the sound and the AV and all the components. So it's been an act of faith, but more than anything, a confirmation that this is definitely needed. And as much as we have a lot of Women's Day events and Women's Day things, to curate it in a way that you feel needs to be addressed, I think for me, has been one of the unique selling points of how Mbokodo has grown in leaps and bounds.
What is the emotional cost of that, of such, steady, building and disappointment? Tell me, what has been emotional?
It is wild, After the day after the event, I think the week leading up to the event, you ask yourself,
Is it worth it?
why? Why didn't I just stay in my office, do my work, and
Yes.
finish clients' things and just keep it moving? But when it all comes together, you literally, I feel this is the hand of God. Like, there's absolutely no way that this would have been as excellent as it was if there was no reason or there was no cause for it to actually happen. So the tears, the setbacks, the emotions, I actually was sharing it with another lady who was putting together an event. And I said to her, listen, there's going to be a hit rate for proposals. So don't propose to 5 people and then expect 3 out of the 5 to respond. You send out proposals to 10 people, 5 might respond, 3 will come back to you, and then 1 will give you something. So that
That's a
means...
formula. You get that formula? That's a formula.
So A, that guards you from rejection, even though you will feel it because you are human. However, it just shows you the precedent of how much resilience you have to attain, and how you need to keep casting the net wide, because putting together an event of that nature is no small feat. And secondly, doing the best of it so that you can also gain favor for the following year is what really counts. I've worked with a lot of people. We've done several events. I mean, some of the events.
Yeah.
And, it is unfortunate, but greed has also been an issue, where if you get a sponsorship of, hypothetically speaking, 10 Rand, you take 6 Rand and put it in your pocket and do an event for 4 Rand, it shows. So if a sponsor gives you 10 Rand, give the sponsor good value for their money so that they can sponsor you again, and not say, oh, finally got this, now I can, buy myself a car, or now I can finally, whatever the case may be.
I'm
But
actually
do
thinking
what you need to
of
do.
something that happened even locally. I don't want to mention names and all of that, but we talk about it sometime with the organizers. Is that this program was running for a couple of years, and then once money came, everything just stopped. And I want us to reflect as well on that need to put yourself, your blood, your sweat, your money, take money from home sometimes to actually drive this and rear this baby to be what it is today. And we have experience of that. I think another thing about greed that I want to reflect on, we started having people also, it's not in bad light or anything. We started realizing that actually what we were building in one of the programs we do together, Fruits of Democracy, what we were building had so much value and brand value that someone else could show up anywhere with just that brand, and they will actually get resources.
Absolutely.
How are you protecting Mbokodo Rise in that regard?
I'm protecting it in the sense that the way I curate the event is unique to any other, in the sense that having seen how it has progressed over the years, having the necessary feedback and follow up from the people who were there, feedback and follow up and reviews from the people who were part of the talent or part of the entertainment, how they felt, what their processes were, and how they felt being a part of Mbokodo. And for me, the importance of ensuring that everybody wins. So the value of Mbokodo is nothing for us without us. And part of that is to ensure that predominantly black female owned companies are the service providers. And if not, then whoever next best is suitable. The talent needs to be our talent, people who are born and bred in Gqeberha, to celebrate them, which then also kind of leans from Fruits of Democracy, that to say, let's celebrate our people who are here, and bring the best out of them from the city. And I think many have tried to imitate or to replicate, and it's just fallen flat on the ground, because a lot of people think, ah, Sesethu, she can do it, so can I. And someone actually alerted me to a recent event which was called Rise Mbokodo, that was hosted here in P. It also actually started out as Mbokodo Rise,
Yeah.
and then a couple of weeks later it changed to Rise Mbokodo.
Yeah.
And I just laughed, and I was like, all the best. And subsequently the event was cancelled, and not to wish ill or harm or but if you're going to do something, understand the core purpose, the end goal, what you want to achieve, and play to that, and not to see Olam is doing leadership, anyone can do leadership, let me take a jab at this leadership thing, without knowing how much you have invested in yourself over the past decade or so, in producing Black Hat
Yeah.
Leadership Academy. So I don't really have intense measures, but I mean, if you want to create it, go right ahead, and all the best.
Sesethu Gqomo Seyibokwe, Mbokodo. You know, when South Africans says wathinta abafazi, wathinta Mbokodo, there's a history to that, but I want also to talk to us about this Women's Month. I know there's usually a theme, there's usually a feeling, there's usually an inspiration, a thought that informs this
theme.
month, or the theme in Mbokodo. What is the theme according to Sesethu Gqomo Communications for this month of abantu ababhinqileyo?
I think my theme for this month, or for this year, has been harmony. I think if anything COVID-19 has taught us is that we can't juggle all the balls. I mean, we haven't been able to juggle all the balls, but the importance of being intentional about who you are and what you want to do at that particular juncture in time. So when I look at my life, I think, do I want to be a great businessman, businesswoman? Yes. Do I still want to be a great wife? Yes. Do I want to be a good mom? Yes. Do I want to be a good relative to my family? Yes. Do I want to be a good person in society, in the community? Yes. But I can't do that all at the same time. So whatever my
Yes.
focus is,
Yes.
let me try and create an element of harmony where we create a melody and not try to play all the keys at the same time, because we've seen that it
It
creates
just doesn't work.
burnout, it
Yes.
creates resentment,
Yeah.
it creates so many things. And to be forgiving to myself, to say, I can't do it all. I want to be the best. I want to be the greatest. I want to be the. But you know what? There are certain things you can outsource in all these spheres, and there's certain things you can't. So my main focus is, what do you want, or how best do I show up as this person in these different spheres? And if it is beyond my control, I can't. So for me, then I look at, how do I define these roles that I play? If I'm defining being a great wife, does it mean I make milk tart from scratch? No. Because then if I did that, then I would consider it a failure.
Seyibokwe.
But do I show up for my husband? Do I
Yes.
show up for his family, or do I show up and make sure
Yes.
that they know that they have someone that they can find solace in? Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
In my business, do I am I up at 3 a.m. every morning trying to do this, that, and the other? Not at this juncture, no. But I think, having built enough over the years, it has helped me to say no. Um, there are other people who are better at me in certain things, in certain aspects, in certain elements of the business, and they must just run with that. And I will make sure that I oversee and look into it. Getting advice, getting counsel, getting different views from different people also helps in that regard, and going forward in all other spheres of your life. So for me, I've said, you know what, harmony does not mean I'm juggling all the balls at once, because you find that most of the balls will fall if you try to juggle all of them at once. But how do I make sure that they kind of all work together? And if they can't, it's okay. Give that a break, focus on what needs your priority, and then pick that up again.
On now that Siteta, the media PR communication specialist, I want to know what is in your toolbox to make things work in that front of media PR communications. What should everyone have?
So first things first, I definitely believe in relationships. In the line of work that we do, you cannot do this alone. You cannot build a PR and marketing agency alone. Having relationships with key or relevant stakeholders, having relationships with people in the media houses, having relationships with people who are influential decision makers. And if you don't have those relationships yet, how do you align yourself and get in there? I mean, I think we've done this quite a bit at networking sessions, saying, okay, this is what our outcome is. We're
Yes.
not just going there to take pictures
Yeah.
and whatever the case may be, but being intentional about creating and establishing these relationships. I actually did have a few notes that I jotted down here.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, no, we're having a great conversation with Sesethu Gqomo Seyibokwe from SG Comms. This company has done so much, in the past. I've seen them building brands. I've seen them promoting, programs and products. I've seen them. I've also seen you partnering or doing something with Kadushi.
Yes,
Kaduchi or
yes,
Oh,
Carducci, yes.
yeah, I know people are gonna clobber me with my if I
They were
can't
like, oh,
pronounce
Ols,
class
you
and
and
all of
your.
that. I know ndisukela eqonce mna andizi nginanga. I just know how to spell it though
Yeah,
with that double C at
yeah,
the end.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, we've been blessed and been privileged with so many opportunities.
Yes.
But I think the top five things that I think has been to have a media contacts database. I mean, contacts, you can establish yourself. You can even buy media contacts nowadays. But the strength of having a relationship with relevant stakeholders or to have those relationships with the media is also very key, because I find that when you talk to people and say, listen, this is what I'm looking to do, I really like what you're doing, or whatever the case may be, could you assist us with sponsorship? Then they, or could you assist us by putting the story in the papers? Because you have a relationship, it kind of makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Which then actually goes to number one: work on your personal brand. Um, Many people think that personal branding means sharing your personal life. It's not. A personal brand helps you establish yourself, and it helps you set yourself apart as a distinctive person or a leader in that specific field. So what that does is that it creates goodwill, it builds trust, and it also gives you longevity in the game. When I see the good work that Olwam Mwazi, the brand, is doing, it makes it a lot easier for me is for if you were to request for
A
money
million
or
rand. A
whatever. I'd be
million
like,
rand.
no man, this guy does some good stuff. I'm
It
sure
has.
I'm going to see returns, you know. And the human mind is funny that it accepts something first and then it justifies it later. So if your brand is
Accepts it
established,
accepts something first
yeah,
and further reason later
yeah,
is okay.
yeah, and it
It's a
justifies it
quotable
later.
quote.
So hence you see people buying a bag for 47,000 rand because of the brand.
My goodness.
It doesn't bring. I'm like, if that bag doesn't bring me other money or other things, then for me it doesn't make sense, you know.
Yeah.
But because of the brand and what it has built over the years, it has established itself to be able to be purchased at that price
Yes.
without question, and continue to have a sustainable life.
And it's demanded.
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
absolutely. So building that personal brand, number one, is very important. It doesn't mean being seen in podiums or talking to people or whatever, but having goodwill and setting out your values, or having a good value system in what you do, because people respond to that and they act to it. So having that media data context database, and then media monitoring and analytics. So this is something I always share in these series, that after COVID or during COVID, the large bulk of what SGComs did was more face-to-face interaction, and COVID had to force us to pivot in a way that we would have never conventionally done. So using tools and analytics and programs that are free to a certain extent, such as your Hootsuite in terms of social media management, to locate certain things, programs such as Canva, your Google Alerts, your Google Docs, and there's a myriad of them online, and just having an intentional way of creating systems and processes that even if you are not going to be there, the show does go on. And you don't have to physically be there in order to generate that income. So having those kind of tools and analytics has been very key. And finding those that are relevant to your industry is also something that you can do online at absolutely no cost. Social media and content creation. This is something that we have, maximized and learned over time. That your social media should be your portfolio of evidence. It's not
It's
necessarily your brag book, although some may see it as a brag book.
Yeah.
And some may be irritated that you're always putting yourself on, or you're always putting. And I think to myself, when Beyonce is showing that, she's going on tour and all her videos of herself on tour, we like and we clap for it. But if I say I'm going on Olwam's podcast and next week I'm going on the Madiba's radio interview and the following week is this and that and the other, it's positioned or seen as a different way.
Yeah.
But social media should be used as your portfolio of evidence, so that even when people are looking for you and trying to see what exactly it is that you do, there are snippets of what you do and what you put out there that can either help convince them even further that you are the person for the job or for the gig, or if they had any doubts about you, it can help in terms of switching whatever preconceived notions they had and have a positive outlook towards you. And then I
That's,
think there's one more.
yeah, I thought my counting was bad.
Yeah. And then, okay, there's two more, the crisis communication and a press kit. So in crisis communication, I think that kind of falls in your more larger corporates. But I have also seen on social media a lot of small businesses, especially those who are in the business of reselling products or reselling items, where a company or an individual blasts them on social media. Having the social media etiquette to handle such queries and to handle certain complaints is really key for any business. This is not even just for PR and advertising, but having a transparent approach, being as what is this word that I'm looking for? Not generic, being as
Authentic. Oh, okay.
pragmatic as possible, and then also sharing the outcome of the complaint. Because you find that someone might complain and say, Sesethu charged me X amount for a birthday party that she planned, etc., etc., etc. And you go back in there and say, good day, Olwam, thank you so much for your inquiry. This is just to note that we did have a conversation. What I showed you was X amount, what you paid for was X amount, but we are more than happy to solve the problem. Then you find that way, when you mitigate those kind of crises that happen online, because we know we as the sad generation thrive on the non-greatness of the companies. But when you work on your crisis communication, you find that it mitigates a lot of those. And also to say that we are human. We do make mistakes sometimes. However, we are always happy to kind of rectify that.
Clarity, thoughtfulness. She oozes power, authority. Mbokodo Rise. So this is great to have this conversation with Sesethu. I know that you have a very active sister, and I wanted to sort of bring her name as well. Do you see that smile? Just by saying, by bringing your sister's
Yeah.
name, Usam, you know, talk to me about her. I can see that you two are buddies. Yeah.
So we always have this, we have this lovely catchphrase that my sister agency is my sister's agency,
Oh.
which is really great, because she also runs her PR agency in Cape Town, which is the Mpuma Global Network, which is doing tremendous
Yes,
work
yes.
in that end, and also in the non-profit space where she founded Mpuma Foundation. And it's one of the greatest blessings to have someone that you completely trust, to share, the not so fantastic moments in the business, to glean off each other with certain ideas, knowing that this is not going to go and travel to other people, because we've had experiences where you share with people you thought you trusted, and they run with the concept without you in it. And because there was no disclaimer or, intellectual property signatures or anything,
Yeah.
there's nothing much you can do about it. So having someone who's in your corner in that regard, I think is one of the greatest blessings. And also just having someone who sees things from a different perspective. Because, we always laugh about how growing up we would be at loggerheads about a lot of things, because she's a type A personality, so she's very pedantic, very structured, very timeous, and things need to go a certain way. And I'm a type B, I keep it moving, like
Asizufa.
no one's gonna die. let's let's keep it moving, let it flow. Whatever's most natural that will come to you, it will come. So fusing those two energies, I think, understanding where our strengths and weaknesses lie, and fusing those have really been great in growing our businesses as well.
Your parents now, there's a story you
Oh
tell
my
about,
God, I
I
hate
love
that
the
story.
story. I think I love the story. There's this fantastic quote from her dad while Sesethu was at Rhodes, I
Yes, yes,
think,
yes,
and she
yes.
was having a time of her life, forgetting that she's there as a student. And then the dad came through. I love the story.
So my first year at Rhodes, and having been sheltered for the bulk of our childhood, you're now in a space where you're free and you're independent, and you there's no one to tell you what you can and cannot do. You can come home whatever time you wish to come home. So
Yeah.
I think I overdid
Indulged.
in the freedom bit, and I remember sharing to my parents. I'm like, yo, and I think also the naivety of my youth, because I mean, why would you share to your parents that you are the life of the party, or or
Life
you are
the
the
party.
or the we were what were we called? We were called the social giants, So all the premium parties that were happening in Grahamstown at the time, and I mean, premium Grahamstown, like that's also another conversation because I mean, there's nothing really premium about it, but so I would share to my folks that like me and my friends, we're considered the social giants. We are the VIPs. Like wherever we go into the VIP section, and there was someone who complimented me on how beautiful I am, and I think also because my parents never made our beauty or made you even alert to the fact that you're beautiful, so use that or whatever. I don't know. We would just never.
Yes.
It was just never in the conversation. So like when someone's like, "Oh my God, you're so beautiful, and you're so great. I love your skin," and you think, "Oh my word, really? I just thought I was a run of the mill,
Yeah.
individual." And needless to say, the July results came, and I think I passed three. No, I passed one or two out of the three modules or whatever. So my dad had a look at my report. So now my dad's like those old school, like Fortarians who are in the struggle, but like there's nothing about him in the struggle. With Advocate Pikoli, they were all, me and Pikoli, we were in the same class. Sasenze homework and don. And so he takes a look at my report. So my mother's devastated. She's just like I really don't know what to make of this. I mean, and also I've never failed in my entire schooling
Yeah.
career. There was nothing that ever showed any indication of me being a poor academic. And my dad looked at my report card in July and he said, so you're claiming that you're a social giant, but in fact you're an academic dwarf."
Guys, I'm sorry. A script must be
And I was
written
like,
about
"Oh my God,
that. You can teach
trauma."
from that quote generations, because I
Yeah,
imagine this big social personality,
yeah,
and then this person that is shrinked
uh,
intellectually
yeah,
because of the report, of
yeah,
course,
absolutely.
and it's something that I think, as much as it's a joke, I want us to sort of talk about it. That there's a friend of mine, Diana Kimono. She with Dr. Diana Kimono now. She used to say, "Olwam, people don't like failing leaders," and it sort of kept on coming back engqondweni yami ukuthi actually you need to be excellent across board, and once you fail here, you start failing in other areas of life. There's a cousin of mine as well that said, uSizwe Bhonqa, that said, once you run away from something here, a test, life has this series of tests before you go to the next stage.
You have to pass
You have to
it.
pass it. Even if you run away from it now, you're still going to get the same kind of test, even if the environment has changed, even if it's another place years later, you need to pass it to move to the next level. Talk to us maybe as we conclude about the lessons from failure.
I think the lessons from failure were more ingrained than lessons from winning. You know, because when you win, you kind of tried something and then people liked it, and then it's like, hey, you know. So it's like when you're in Grahamstown, people are like, oh, you're so pretty. There's absolutely nothing you
Nothing.
really
No.
did. It was just, you know,
Given.
luck of the
God given.
draw.
God endowed.
Like, you know, thank my genes and thank God, you know, type of thing.
Yeah.
I didn't really have to do anything, but then you got access into certain spaces. But then when you fail, you realize that, you know, once again, being a social giant is all that there is to it. Maybe that win was a superficial type of win, and there was no real lesson behind it. Or maybe to say that use your influence, that clearly there is an element of influence that you have, but back it up with something that is, you know, sustainable. So from my losses, I think, or from my failures, I definitely think that they've taught me so much about the importance of going through things with a fine-tooth comb. A lot of times you kind of like, I'm saibona, you know, having that kind of attitude or that kind of works sometimes in certain spaces because of your personality, your spontaneity, or maybe, you know, quick thinking at that particular juncture. But having that as a structure of running a business is not going to be sustainable. You can't saibona it all the time. There
Yeah.
needs to be an element of planning. There needs to be an element of looking at the end goal and working towards that and tick boxing along the way. Failure has also taught me that, you know, even if you are great, or even if you are deemed as this whatever person, it doesn't mean that you are necessarily going to be accepted, and that's still okay. So, you know, I think from having a childhood that was multifaceted or had lots of different uh, um, cultures that sometimes accepted you and sometimes didn't, you know, when you achieve a certain thing, you're like, okay, now I have an undergrad degree, everyone's gonna like me or see me in a certain light. Okay. Now that I have a postgraduate degree, everyone's gonna like me or see me in a certain. Okay. Now that I'm in the working field, everyone's gonna like me, and
It doesn't happen.
it doesn't happen that way. So no matter what milestone you think you might achieve for acceptance of any kind, there's no generic acceptance of any kind in any space. I mean, even Oprah Winfrey, you know, billionaire, uh, talk show over 27 years, international, influential. There's still people who don't like her, and
Are
that,
you mad?
yeah,
You know, are you mad?
that does
Yeah.
not. So I think understanding that these are the tones that you've set for your life, and these are the milestones that you wish to achieve, and being okay with the fact that it won't be accepted no matter how great it is. I mean, we've seen so many projects that have been not even of superior quality, but getting the biggest round of applause, and you're like,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
not even a great thing. I mean,
Yes.
we've done way better
Yes.
things at a fraction of the cost with half the recognition.
You know what hurts me the most is when I help people to write proposals. Help write a proposal. The person takes it to a particular fund, and then they get that amount of money. And then I take a proposal that
That
I've
you
written,
made.
and then I take it myself like, hey, Wana, what is happening? And then you get maybe a fraction
Yeah.
of even what you're asking.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I deserve, to be given everything, but
It just
there's
makes
something.
you
Yes, there's
makes you
something.
wonder.
That's why my thinking now is that like, let's just go national. Let's just go continental.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
just go.
Global.
Global.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like what Sam is doing
Yeah.
because she's actually charting, a path that
Yeah.
goes internationally.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
she started even thinking from that mindset. And I think what is left as you build SG Comms, what is left for you to really, let's say, go global?
what is left for SGComs to go global?
And I know someone has to believe in
Yeah.
the fact that you can do it, because it's not really about, um, actually, it's not money. It's not really about money. Because I've seen money going where, as you were saying, where there's no value. You know, if someone believes in that person, or they probably are going to accrue some kind of value from the process, from the proceeds. For you, what is left? Let's,
I
if
think
money was not an issue.
I think for me it would be me, you know. Sometimes you find that some of your greatest enemies are your mindsets. And I know that as women we always feel that in order for us to, you know, I was sharing with one of our speakers, and she said, you know, she wants to get into business. I mean, she's been an engineer for over 27 million years, and she's like, no, she wants to do a master class on entrepreneurship. And I'm like, you don't have to do that, like just
Get
jump in, you know. And that's what we always do. We say, okay, I want to go global, but now I want to find an international
qualification that,
course that's going to
yes,
help me trade
yes,
in this, that, and the other. Not to say that that's not a great idea, but sometimes we are the people that actually are the ones who are mitigating or limiting ourselves in becoming or getting to that space where we wish to be. So I think for me, more than anything, it would be to prepare myself mentally to say that OSGComs is
this is,
just going
yes,
global, and to align myself accordingly and say, let me maybe not approach only local vendors or only local suppliers or only
yes.
local people, but um, reach out to your EMEAs and to your intercontinental spaces and
I'm gonna sit
agencies.
here and think and pretend as if I know what is EMEA.
It's
You also don't
Eastern,
know.
no, it's Asian, Middle East, and Africa.
Oh, that, yeah, sounds like money. Sounds like money. Guys, we need a lot of money to do what we are doing.
Yeah.
Our partners have to sacrifice a lot for us to do what we are doing. We have to carry together the loads. Sometimes, you know, it's a little bit of a balancing act. And I've been fortunate to have walked and seen a lot of these, you know, emerging um, powerhouses building their brands, building their products, building their art will bring more and more over time. I want Sesethu to conclude for us. Anything you want to say now that you've heard the conversation? Would you like to say something to abantu ababhinqileyo, abafana, amadoda, osisi ababukeleyo?
I think, you know, it goes back to a scripture that I always love to share in the book of Ecclesiastes, which reads, the end of a matter is always better than its beginning, and patience is always better than pride. The how you start or how your life starts is not going to determine how your life ends, but also patience is better than pride. I find that a lot of entrepreneurs that I mentor or consult with, they want to hit Mbokodo's sixth year in the first year, and you have to go through the process. You can't skip the process of anything, of starting a business, of doing an event, of anything, you know. And having that patience to say, I'm going to start with what I have, where I am, and build up towards that is far more endearing than saying, I'm going to hit R500,000 sponsorship in the next year,
Yeah.
and you've never put a tea party together, you know.
There's someone who came to me, I think about 7 years back. He came to me. I know that if he's watching, he's not going to mind because we can always laugh about it. He came to me. He said, I can see what you're doing, and idea. I want 5 million rands to actually go to be funded for this program that we're going to do for the province. And then I asked, but have you done something just for your street? Maybe with 5,000 rand, maybe with 500 rand, so that we can see this track
Yeah.
record. We can believe, because we're probably not going to believe you, but we'll believe that portfolio of evidence that you talked about. And the guy felt like I'm undermining him. I wasn't, but even today he has not started. And if we meet again, I'm going to ask him to go back and start that street.
Start on your
just,
street, yeah.
Just organize something so
Yeah.
that we can see that you can do what you're asking support for. We've had Sesethu Gqomo Seyibokwe. She's doing Mbokodo Rise in the Woman Month. What's the date again?
12th August.
12th August.
At the BMW Continental Showroom.
And you're going to win 50,000 rand.
Oh, you're not!
Boundaries are up. You know, we've really enjoyed and seen how this product is developing. And I know she's going to take it nationally. I know it's going to be bigger. Maybe this is a product that she'll go global on. She's a household name. You don't talk events, PR, in the Eastern Cape and not mention SG Comms. You go to her platforms, you'll see her online, you put something and then she calls money and you must pay the money she asks for. She's worth every dime. I'm saying this because I know what she can do. Thank you so much, Sesethu, for coming. Usibulisele kuthathu Seyibokwe. And I know that the family ikhona usibulisele. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you also. I appreciate it. And thank you once again for having me.
Thank you so much.